somebody asked a question on one of the previous videos, which was how much outlining do you do before you start writing? And I was thinking about that because there are other people on YouTube who will share. They're like meticulous with their outlining, and they have these beautiful like these post-it boards, and like they'll put them behind their screen, like when they're filming and they're talking, and you can see the beautiful lines of post-it notes and I look at that and I always kind of feel bad because mine is so much more chaotic compared to that. Um, uh, I have like so many ideas, and I'll try to put it in. And I was thinking the other day, what actually is my process? I'm still kind of figuring it out, and it may evolve and change. But I think what I've figured out to answer that question, how much outlining do you do before you start writing a process? Um, I definitely need to know where the end is. I need to have a solid feeling about where the end of the book is going to go, what the deep sort of theme of the story is, and I'll be scrubbing through these ideas while I'm cleaning and cooking and doing things around the house, trying to understand what is the point, you know, of the whole story. Why does it exist at all? And if I have that, I can anchor to that, then I can start to work backwards and realize um, I need to put my characters through certain things, or I need to have them deeply misunderstand something so that they can come to the realization towards the end, something like that. So I need to have a sense of my theme. I need to have a sense of where it's going to go, the general feel, the overall feeling of the thing. Um, and I need to know what my entry points are. So what the opening scenes are going to be like. So that's when, if you've watched any of the Obsidian videos that I shared, where I use that to try to start to get organized, I'll divide my book into like 3 acts, kind of following what is it called? Um, Joseph Campbell, sort of hero with a thousand faces thing, sort of do that because it's a great backbone for a story. And then I'll just dump in all the ideas, dump in everything. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it all down. And the nice thing about doing it as a Kanban board is that it can be cards. I can drag and drop them, and then I'll grab 3 books and for a sense of structure, like Save the Cat, um, Coffee Break Screenwriter. What's the other one? Uh, Something about not being a pantser or something like that, or not being a plotter. Take off your pants, I think it's called. It's about getting down to being a pantser, finding the basic elements so that you can just get in and write. Because I'm not the kind of writer. There's some who do need to organize and write out every single idea and every single detail so that the writing process is not um, how do I say? Well, I don't know. This is what it would feel like for me if I were to map out every single little bit and piece of every scene. Then when I go to write the actual scene, it's like filling in an essay with all of the thought that's done before. And I'm finding for me it doesn't quite work that way. Um, I will usually intuit who my main character is, and try as I might, I will not be able to force that character to be what she or that person doesn't want to be. And it's actually been a bit of a nightmare with my current character because I need her to be a specific kind of character to carry the story. It's an action adventure kind of thing. But I don't want her to be moody, even though she's going through a ton. So she's got to be smart. She's got to be dealing with a bunch of stuff, and she has to be capable of doing things. I have no idea if I'm actually making it work, but I'm trying. Um, and I'll end up having to go back and wipe out and rewrite a bunch of stuff because who I'm intuiting and guessing her to be as a character, scenes are not showing that. So I have to create new scenes to do that. So, um, but that's where I'm going with this is I will outline enough so that I can get into just start writing. And then while I write, take notes and maybe go and update um, my Kanban boards, so that I can add new cards or clarify things. I was feeling bad thinking about that the other day, realizing I might get to the end of this novel, and then my Kanban board is going to be kind of a mess and half finished and not filled out. And then realizing, well, nobody else is going to see that, only I will. And once the novel's written, I don't really need that anymore. So maybe it may be the purpose that it serves is to hold the big ideas so that I can get in to write the novel, and then this is the part that I love, is the discovery writing of the rest of the actual scene, to see what the characters do and to see what emerges from the scene, and by actually trying to live that moment with as the character, and then just see what happens. So I've got some really cool comments here. Tearstone pops in. Hi there, good to see you again. Uh, Aiden Fair is talking about, I think his prologue. He says the main premise is the longer you have a fear, or the more afraid you are of it. It starts to manifest like a personality, and as such, till you face it. Sounds dark, makes them face fierce. That is awesome. That is fantastic. That actually that makes me think about like the doing shadow work, or what the shadow is. Um, and effectively, your shadow is everything that you're unaware of uh, in who you are as a human being, as a person. Um, yeah, and until you pay attention to it, until you can integrate it, it's going to be doing whatever it wants and influencing you. And it's an incredibly strong thing. You don't beat or defeat this thing. You integrate it because it's you. Um, yeah, I've got a story I'd like to write at one point where a character has to pair up with this shadowy like being, quite literally his shadow. I'm going to externalize it like some sort of a Hulk like being, or I don't know. So anyhow, um, let me know if that's helpful. What do you think? What's your process for outlining? Again, I think there's different people do whatever you need to meet the end goal, which is getting a novel written, getting it done, and getting it shared. But uh, that's part of it. The other part of it is actually, as well, the sheer enjoyment of paying really close attention to something that is deeply valuable, something that is deeply meaningful, and the process of engaging with writing, the whole thing, not just the writing of a book so that you can put it on a shelf and share it with somebody else, but the actual, if you can say, the birthing of the whole thing, the whole weaving together, the whole note taking, the whole dreaming, the whole reverie, the whole idea generation, the brainstorming, the simmering, all of that um, is part of this process. Um, there's a book, I think I referenced it recently, and I'll bring it up again, called "Courting the Wild Twin" by Martin Shaw. And if you haven't read that, grab a copy, or it's available as an audiobook on Audible, and that's how, not Audible, well maybe, but I listen to it on Spotify. And there's a little point where he says in there, I'm going to butcher this, but he says something like, first, stories are the language of the soul. The soul does not speak in words like we do. Like we use thesauruses and dictionaries to speak with. Our soul doesn't do that. It speaks in stories. That's why we love stories and how stories communicate across cultures. But uh, he also says sometimes a story will like show up in your life, and it will need to be tended and nurtured and cared for a long time, until it gets a sense that you're ready to actually work with it. And if you push it too hard, too soon, too fast, it just pulls right back and it fades away, and it doesn't work. As opposed to courting it, like wooing it, like inviting it, recognizing that it's a thing that wants to communicate with you, maybe through you, maybe simply to you, especially if you're not really sharing this with other people. So you might need to sit with something for a long time and tend it and nurture it like you're growing something. Um, and then so my question would then be, well, how does that work compared to something like the video I just shared, like writing a novel in 2 months? And I think my answer for that is going to be, well, it just depends on the project. For me, I have spent so much time dreaming and thinking about all the different novels that I want to write that they're just like, I'm constipated with creativity. And that's because I have not done the next part of creating a disciplined time to sit down, to show up, and to actually work on the output. I've done a ton of the generation, stuff's rattling around in there. I've got the notes. I need to learn the skill of getting it out, um, and then see what happens when it becomes as easy as riding a bike. Once I learn to ride the bike, then I can figure out where I'm going to go and then what new experiences I will have. But until I learn to ride the bike, all I'm doing is sitting in place dreaming. So um, it very well may be that some of these stories just need to be worked through, and they want to breathe through me. And this is where, um, as far as this channel goes, things like the numinous, right? I think C.S. Lewis uses this word, the experience of spirits, the imaginal realm, which is what the Sufis would call it, which is the intertidal zone between the world of pure spirit and then the world of matter that we're in. We humans are like amphibians between these two worlds. And this imaginal realm, this perilous realm, like Tolkien called it, um, that is where inspiration comes from. It doesn't just, it's not just your imagination inside your head. Sometimes it's inspiration coming from outside of you, and it wants to roost in you for a while, and maybe to see what you do with it, maybe for the benefit of somebody else. Um, but if you love something, that means there's a connection in that thing to you. Like there are so many stories out there that you'll watch and read and just not care about. They mean nothing to you. It's because it's not anchored in you. But then there are some stories, and they're the ones that you're prepared to sacrifice for, and you're prepared to spend time working on and writing. You do that because you love it. I strongly don't think that we do, like, if you're an actual creator, you don't do this for money. You don't do this for income. You can, you can commodify it. You can take all the fruits of your creativity once it's done and then consider selling it. But the core idea is, what am I trying to create and learn about myself and do this? Um, uh, and then once it's like making 1,000 pots, you're trying to learn the discipline of pot making. Now you can go and sell all the rest because once it's kind of done, it's sort of meaningful. It's not that meaningful. And you can just let it go because the output, is not the ultimate point. It's the stepping stone because you are the ultimate point to figure out who you are, what you're trying to say, what you're trying to think, what you want to communicate. And if it's really good and meaningful to you, it doesn't have a price point. Um, so you can write to market and you can write for money. Um, but I'm going to contend, if you want to do that, do that. But don't expect it to be deeply meaningful because to you, because out the gate, you are writing for a specific purpose. And that purpose is to make income, to sell, and I get all that, and that can be a very good reason. But just own the journey. If that's your outcome, own it. If you're trying to discover why these things matter to you, and you just feel this pull to live through the imagined lives of these other things or these other people, partly because you love it, which means you're trying to discover something about yourself or something that you feel you want to say. You don't know what it is yet. You might need to do it for 10 years before it becomes clear. Well, then you have to choose that because ultimately, what is that? Well, that is the truth. You're trying to find the truth that's like bubbling up in you, and it's just not clear and it's foggy, and you just need to really sit with it for a long time. So pick one. If you do the one, which is kind of how I'm doing, I might end up self-publishing and just sort of selling the things, but that's ancillary. If I never sell them, I don't think I'll mind, because my point is I want to tell these stories because for some reason they mean something really deep to me. Um, I don't know. That's how I'm thinking about it. Um, there's no guarantee I'm right, and I might change my opinion. So I'm fine to do that too. It looks like there's some more comments. We'll just check these really quickly. Nicholas says, "Good morning. Martin Shaw is my favorite writer. Isn't he incredible? I tell you, I read his book, Bard Skull, and that was like, I don't even know how to talk about that. It's such an incredible book. Maybe I will talk about it someday. We'll come back and do that. I blogged about that at one point because it was just stunning." Fragwagon says, "I outline, but I still make up scenes while writing. Usually I know a character needs to get from point A to point B, but once I get writing, I have to fill it in. Hopefully when I come to editing, it will make sense." I think that makes sense. That's how I go about it too. I need to keep a sense of creativity. If I plot everything out ahead of time, I guess, I don't know, I just get bored faster. That might just be sort of the ADHD part of me, but I like the sense of once I get into a thing, I need to figure out what's going to happen. I know how to start, I know how it ends, I don't know the in between, and I'll often end up surprising myself, which is funny how that happens, right? Um, and good book process title, Constipated with Creativity. It's funny. It's annoying as heck though, because I don't know what my next project's going to be because they're all banging at the gate wanting to get out. Um, so we'll see. I think I'd like to write a cozy fantasy next, just to try something really, I don't know. It seems like it would be easier to write. I've been looking at bookshops and Bone Dust or Legends and Lattes, and I love how easy it seems to write something like that. And I kind of want to give that a go. Aiden says, if I don't outline individual chapters, I get away from the purpose of the chapters. And I get that. I get that. And for me, I will outline the acts so I'll know where this chunk of the book is supposed to go. Um, and then I think what I'll probably end up doing is I'll outline scenes, and this is a whole question that comes up. What's the difference between a scene and a chapter? And you could have, I had to look it up and watch a bunch of videos to try to understand it because my chapters are like building blocks, and they're usually around 1,500, 2,000 words per chapter. And I'll usually pair one scene per chapter, and that's just how I've broken it down. But sometimes you can have one scene made up of 3 chapters because a chapter is an artificial break to create some sort of tension, or to keep people reading to and sort of end on a cliffhanger hanger, to give people a beginning and an end so that, I don't know, maybe even to jump into the narration that somebody else provides. Um, so I find I will drop in the scenes in my world building sort of as I'm outlining. I'll drop in the scenes, not so much the chapters, and then start writing the chapters and see how long it gets. And if I find a chapter is like, this is now 3,000, 4,000 words, like, okay, let's split this in half. Because I think I also like the feeling of like I think a 15 or 3,000 word chapter, 1,500 to 3,000 words. You can feel like you're making progress and getting through it pretty quickly. Um, and I like things to feel like page turners. I don't know. I'm still figuring all this out. But for me, it is now 8:24, and I've got to head out and make breakfast for the family and get my day going. So it was amazing to be able to come back and spend time with you. Thanks for showing up. If you're catching the replay, go ahead and let us know in the comments how you did and what you're writing, and if you made any specific word counts. Um, Fragwagon says, chosen to do longer chapters. Hard to say how many scenes constitute them. It's true. Till you physically get in the thing and just start writing it, it's hard to know. I gotta run. Y'all are so much fun. I hope I'm being helpful. I would love to continue being helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let's keep creating this chill writing community together. And someday, if you end up finishing your thing, send me a note because I'd love to read it. Especially if we ended up writing it together, I'd love to know what it is you ended up writing. Okay, have an amazing rest of your day. I'm going to try to be back tomorrow morning, uh, usually between 6:30 to 8 o'clock. At some point within there, I will try to be back on. So thanks for everything.